Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Scout Selections here for Wednesday, January 29th. Before we get into today's play, a quick recap of what happened yesterday. We ended up picking up a winner with Trae Young, double-double, which was available at plus 130 on DraftKings. It was pretty easy, honestly. I believe it was 6 and 7 at the half. He ended up getting a double-double with about 6 minutes left in the third quarter, so it was completely sweat-free. Toronto ended up blowing the game open, but Young ended up finishing with, I believe, 18 and 13, so we were able to pick up a nice plus 130 winner there. The line didn't make any sense based on how many assists Young has been getting over the last week, and it was pretty easy. So either or, easy winner there. And for today's card, decent amount of college basketball games, and there is a couple of games on the NBA card. And the play today will actually be on the NBA. And we're going to be sticking to a player prop here. And we actually like a player prop in a matchup between the Houston Rockets and the Portland Trail Blazers. And we like Damian Lillard over 31.5 points, which is available at minus 108 on FanDuel, and that will be the play of the day. Now, two things to mention here. The first thing is that the reason why we like this play is because of the fact that Damian Lillard has been on an absolute tear lately. If you've actually watched any of his recent games, he can't really miss. He's been probably the hottest shooter in the league over the last week or so. And if you've looked at the numbers that he's put up over the last 5 games, the numbers are kind of absurd, and I think that this point total is a bit too low. Plus, Portland, with the total being so high at roughly 238.5, if Portland's going to score at least 120 or 125 or so, if this game's going to be close, then they're going to need Lillard to score probably around 35 points. Minimum, so that's just another reason why I actually like it, because I think this game will be close. Now, looking at Lillard's recent numbers, first of all, he's averaging 28.8 points per game, so he's already somewhat close to the threshold. But if you've looked at his last 5 games, he's put up 50, 47, 61, 34, and 34. So he's gone over in each of the last 5. Each of the last 3 he's put up at least 47. And now you have a total of 31.5. It's also worth mentioning that even though Houston won their last game without Westbrook or Harden playing, Westbrook is back in the lineup, and Harden is expected to return on Wednesday. And one thing that we do know is that when both of them play, they tend to give up a decent amount of points because of the fact that both Harden and Westbrook are abysmal defenders on ball. I think Lillard should have a very solid game. And plus, if you've looked at his numbers against Houston, it's kind of going to sound like it's going to contradict what my play is, but at the same point, I have a reason for it. In 2 games against the Rockets this season, he has been terrible. He's shooting 34% from the floor, and he's averaging 19 points per game. However, I think that'll actually be some motivation for Lillard to put in a good performance once again in this one, because he has struggled in the first 2 meetings against the Rockets this season. I think that you should see him play well. I think he will score at least 34 points, give or take. And I think the main reason why is also because of the fact that Portland, in such a track meet style game, will have more possessions, and Lillard is going to be controlling the ball most of the time, and I expect him to try to take advantage of Houston as a result. If it misses, then it misses, but at the end of the day, he's dropped at least 47 in each of the last 3, at least 34 in each of the last 5, and the number's at 31.5 at minus 110. So for that reason, I think that line's too low. I think this should be around 33 or so. So for that reason, play of the day, once again, will be on Damian Lillard over 31.5 points, which is available on FanDuel at minus 110, and that will be the play of the day. Now, looking at some of the other NBA matchups on today's card, I'm going to lean to what do I like here? Sorry, I'm just looking through. I find the net spread very interesting here. I know Drummond's a game-time decision, so I'm not really going to be touching that. I don't think he's going to be playing because he's dealing with a left wrist injury, and if he's not able to go, I definitely would lean to Brooklyn minus the 6.5. If Drummond does play, though, then I simply would not take it because Drummond's guaranteed to get 20 rebounds against the Nets every time he plays them. There was some stat I saw when I was watching the Nets play the Pistons over the weekend. They said Drummond's had at least 20-something rebounds against the Nets in each of the last 6 meetings. Something like that. Drummond goes off every time he faces off Brooklyn. So if he doesn't play, that would be a big loss for Detroit. But other than that, lean to Memphis minus the 2.5. I got them minus 2 this morning. Both teams played yesterday, so you don't have to worry about one team having the rest advantage. New York lost a tough road game to Charlotte, and Memphis won a nice home game against Denver. But overall, New York just doesn't have the talent to keep up with Memphis. It's going to be Ja Morant's first game at the Garden. I think he'll put on a show. I think you should see Memphis win by at least 5 points. Lean to Memphis on that one. Other than that, what else do I like? Yeah, I'm going to lean to Oklahoma City. I know Sacramento won their last game in thrilling fashion against Minnesota, but they probably should have lost that game, and Minnesota stinks. Oklahoma City has been the much better team. Lately, they did lose their last game. That was mostly just because of the fact that they decided to rest Chris Paul against Dallas and ended up losing. Oklahoma City is the better team. This line's a little bit sketchy, but at the end of the day, Oklahoma City's been the best cover team in the entire NBA this season. And it seems like even despite who gets injured, they still manage to throw people into the lineup and they still manage to win. Lean to Oklahoma City. I think they should be able to get the job done. So lean to the Thunder on that one. And other than that, though, I think that's pretty much it for the NBA card. Now, looking at the college basketball card, I know you have a decent amount of money on the over between Alabama and LSU. I'll lean to the over because that game just seems like a lot of fun. Went up from 164 to 165. Both teams love to run, and I think both teams should get into the 80s. You could get some free throws late because of the close game. So I think that game should be close. Lean to the over on that one. Other than that, lean to the over in the Citadel game. It's gone from 147 to 153. I ended up getting it this morning at roughly 149. But this line continues to climb. Both the teams did play each other earlier this season and finished in the 140s. But I think people are just assuming that in the second meeting, both teams should be able to shoot better from the floor. I'm inclined to agree with that. Lean to the over on that one. And Texas Tech I have no thoughts on. Most likely they'll probably win, but they screwed me at home against Baylor a couple weeks ago, so I'm personally just not going to touch them. Lean to Baylor, though, -4 against Iowa State. I know the line continues to drop, and Iowa State's been good at home, but Baylor is the number one team in the country, and we saw what they did against Florida over the weekend. I think Iowa State will be motivated to put in a good performance, but at the end of the day, I actually think Baylor is that good, and I think Baylor will win this game by at least 5. Lean to the Bears on that one. Other than that, though, play today once again will be on Damian Lillard over 31.5 points, which is available on FanDuel at -110. That's going to be the installment of Scott's Selections, and good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.